Our chronicle unfolds in Joseon era, where a woman is unceremoniously dragged before the king named Juan. Her name is Bora, and she sits trembling in the royal court. Without hesitation, Bora blurts out that this king's name is Juan, and he is nothing short of an unrestrained despot. Juan strides toward her with a menacing poise and proclaims that the dish she prepared bewildered his senses entirely, as though his tongue had embarked on a spontaneous holiday without so much as a farewell note. The courtiers, scandalized by her audacity, clamor for her immediate punishment. With theatrical flair, Juan raises his gleaming sword, prepared to deliver judgment, but he abruptly halts midway and pronounces that from this very moment, Bora shall ascend as the chief royal chef, the supreme authority of the palace kitchens. She must cook for him every single day, never repeating the same dish twice. Should she falter even once, displeasing his palate, she shall face instant execution. Under her breath, Bora mutters that she was on the verge of becoming the head chef at a prestigious 3-star Michelin restaurant in France, only to find herself now enslaved as the personal cook of this capricious tyrant. Juan studies her intently and inquires if she dares to voice a thought, yet Bora maintains her silence. Moments later, Juan unsheathes his sword again and slashes, but only to sever the ropes that had bound her. Bora then turns toward the audience and confides that they may scarcely believe it, but she hails from the year 2025. With a mischievous tone, she asks if they wish to know how she arrived here, and at once, the narrative dissolves into a flashback. The scene shifts to the year 2025 at a grand culinary competition in France. The chefs are assembled, the countdown commences, but to Bora's horror, her stove refuses to function, as though it too had demanded a leisurely coffee break. She beckons a technician for assistance, but the contraption remains obstinately inert. Thinking swiftly, Bora seizes a bundle of straw nearby, ignites it, and begins cooking in a most unorthodox manner. The spectators gasp at the audacity of her improvisation, yet she completes her dish with remarkable finesse before the time expires. One by one, the judges approach to savor the creations. When Bora's turn arrives, they are astounded, declaring her dish to be nothing less than exquisite. Bora, with quiet pride, unveils its name, enumerates the ingredients, and serves the judges a special delicacy inspired by the gluttonous and tyrannical Joseon King Hwanyeon. The judges are immensely impressed with her cooking, and Bora wins the competition. Overjoyed, she calls her father to share the good news. Her father, however, immediately gives her a new task, and he asks her to bring him an old historical book related to the Joseon dynasty. She got on the plane to meet her father, and on that very same day, a total solar eclipse was about to happen. Suddenly, a fellow passenger's tea topples over, drenching the book in an unforgiving splash. To rescue it from sogginess, Bora hurries into the bathroom, and thus begins the extraordinary saga of her voyage through time. She discovers that the book she had stumbled upon is not an ordinary volume at all, but, in fact, one entwined with ancient recipes. Yet, one page is mysteriously torn out, as she reads a peculiar line that says, "My dear, if you ever come across this, could you possibly come to me?" Then the book abruptly begins to glow. Bora, with a half-smile, assumes this must be some hopelessly cheesy Joseon-era romance, probably written by the Shakespeare of pickles. But then, the surroundings tremble, lights flicker restlessly, and her voice seems to vanish into the void. The book opens on its own, and from within, a radiant chain of mystical light latches onto her, dragging her into its depths. In an instant, she finds herself hurled backwards through time, landing smack in the dense forests of the Joseon period. There, she stumbles straight into a trap and gets entangled. Meanwhile, King Hwan is out hunting with his soldiers. Just as he prepares to shoot a deer, memories of his mother, once a queen but dethroned by conspiracy, surface in his mind. Hwan ultimately strikes down the deer and coldly declares that the hunt shall continue. His commander, Min, warns him of approaching night and the risk of enemy attacks. Yet Hwan dismisses his caution with the same ease one would dismiss an annoying mosquito. Back in the palace, preparations for a solemn ritual are underway. The head Queen Injo, Hwan's grandmother, grows agitated at her grandson's absence. Court ladies whisper that the king should not have gone hunting today, but Injo silences them with sharp fury. Privately, she suspects Hwan avoids the palace because the injustice against his mother still weighs upon him. Outside the palace, officials are equally puzzled by the king's absence, asking where Secretary Hyun might be. Someone replies that he has gone to Cha Hang, the place from which alluring women are chosen for the king. Meanwhile, Juan tells his guards he intends to slay even more deer and claim greater rewards. His bodyguard reminds him sternly that today is the day of a solar eclipse and he must attend the ritual. If he fails, tradition warns, the heavens shall curse him, and a female phantom shall reveal herself. Juan, however, scoffs at such superstitions. Meanwhile, Bora remains trapped in the snare. Suddenly, the delicate fragrance of a butterfly rouses her. She cries out for help, but no one comes. She pulls out her phone, only to find it has no signal. Bewildered, she mutters to herself that she was in an airplane bathroom just moments ago, so how on earth did she end up here? Meanwhile, Juan notices a fox and wanders off alone to hunt it. At that moment, Bora sees an arrow strike nearby. The fox appears, takes the hit, but manages to escape. By fortune, or perhaps by cosmic mischief, the arrow grazes the rope of her trap, slicing it apart, and thus Jin is finally set free. When he spots Bora, he is stunned. Seeing her modern clothes, he mistakes her for a Ginyo, a ghostly woman that their soldiers were talking about. Bora, on the other hand, assumes these people are filming some grand historical drama and concludes that Juan is simply an actor. A fierce argument breaks out between them. Bora pulls out her stun gun, while Juan readies his bow and arrow. Just as their quarrel escalates, an arrow shot by rebels who wish to assassinate Juan strikes him. Both Bora and Juan tumble off a cliff and fall into a river. Juan lies wounded and unconscious, but despite their earlier clash, Bora's compassion surfaces. Drawing on her skills as a chef, she uses her small knife to extract the arrow and ties his wound with her scarf. When he regains consciousness, Juan still insists she must be a ghost. Bora continues to believe he is nothing more than a crazy actor. Now alone and in danger, she takes matters into her own hands and knocks him out with her head. She then ties Juan with a rope so that he cannot run off, then drags him through the forest in search of shelter. Eventually, she pulls the injured Juan into a small hut where they meet a young woman named Hani. It turns out this forest is Juan's private hunting ground, where commoners are forbidden. Hani was very young. That's why she has been hiding there to escape the king's wrath. Bora still thinks it is part of a production, but when Hani mentions the year of the blue monkey and shows she has no idea what a supermarket is, Bora begins to panic. Because who in the world doesn't know what a supermarket is? The amusing twist begins here because they were hungry and there was no food. Bora, the ever-resourceful chef, works her magic. She uses the wild vegetables and barley rice available in the hut, but also reveals her secret weapons, gochujang and butter, that she bought from the year 2025. Combining them, she creates a dish no one in Joseon had ever seen or tasted, gochujang butter bibimbap. Juan eyes the dish suspiciously, convinced it may be poisoned. He acts picky and refuses to eat, but Bora teases him like a child and insists he must try it. Juan demands that she eat it first. As soon as he takes his first bite, the fiery spiciness nearly knocks him off his feet, and he immediately suspects poison. Yet within moments, the intense flavor blossoms into a rich, irresistible taste. Enchanted, he devours the dish eagerly, begging for more like a child, throwing a tantrum at a candy shop. The flavors even awaken a faint memory of his mother. After the meal, Bora and Hani go to a nearby river to search for Bora's handbag. There, Hani confirms that they are indeed in the Joseon dynasty. Bora is completely shocked to realize that the mad actor she had been dragging around is none other than the reigning Juan. Just then, Juan's soldiers arrive, searching for him. Juan's demeanor shifts instantly, the wounded man replaced by a ruthless and commanding monarch. His first order is to hunt down the traitor who dared to insult him. Alarmed, Bora and Hani hide as they thought he was talking about them. Chaos erupts as Juan's guards begin forcibly capturing young women from the village. Bora and Hani are seized as well. Bora shouts that it is kidnapping, but in Joseon, no one pays attention. The girls are all herded together. Still dazed, Bora wonders if she has truly landed in Joseon. She tries to escape but fails. Exhausted, she faints and dreams of herself winning the 2025 cooking competition. But upon waking, she realizes it was only a dream. She remains imprisoned. Determined, she vows inwardly to escape and find a way back home. The girls are lined up while the Juan's guard officials inspect their ages to decide their fates. Those deemed suitable are sent to the right, the rest to the left. Hani, being only 18, was worried that if they knew her age, they would send her to the king. Bora, who declares she is 27, is mocked as old and sent to the left. Hani then also lied about her age, and she happily went with Bora. Meanwhile, Bora feels relieved at first, thinking she has escaped danger, but little does she know this is only the beginning of her troubles. The girls on the left are assigned to work in the vast royal kitchen known as Chanbong. Bora soon realizes she has not been freed at all, but she has been forced into service as a cook. Meanwhile, on the other side, Juan and his soldiers continue their search for Bora. They come across her footprints on the ground along with her hair tie. The soldiers speculate that perhaps the women have been taken to the governor's office. Juan smirks and remarks that in that case, they should head there at once. Meanwhile, Bora and Hani have now reached the kitchen. Inside, the cooks already present are busily preparing food. Bora asks them what they are cooking and for whom. They merely reply that they were given orders for nothing more. For whom the dishes are meant, they claim ignorance. Bora observes that the kitchen is frighteningly short on ingredients. Just then, a man enters and announces that 2 very important guests are expected, and food must be prepared for them. Bora immediately questions, "Fine, but who are they? What are they like?" "You can't just whip up a meal by rolling dice in the pantry." The man shrugs indifferently and says he has no idea. At that moment, the head chef Ian walks in with a frosty gaze and demands to know what is going on. Bora bluntly tells him there is hardly any food available, and they do not even know who the guests are or what they prefer. Ian replies coldly that he will tell her everything, but she must remember if the dish is not good, her life may be the price. He asks if she is prepared for that. Bora nods gravely. Ian then pulls her aside and reveals that the guests are none other than Han, the chief secretary and town inspector, and his father Sohan. Han also happens to be King Juan's childhood friend. The two often bicker even in jest, but in truth, both are merciless, notorious for punishing people over the smallest of issues. Hyun, in particular, delights in deliberately finding faults in food, sometimes even slipping a strand of hair into the dish just to raise suspicion, at other times questioning the flavor. "Are you ready to face such a man?" Ian asks. Bora answers firmly that she is indeed ready, but on one condition. If they like her cooking, then he must set them free. Ian contemplates for a moment and finally agrees. Bora returns to the women and tells them about the deal she has struck with Ian, that if they manage to cook well, they might actually win their release. The problem, however, is that the kitchen has barely any supplies. Everyone is lost in thought, wondering what could possibly be prepared. Suddenly, Bora notices meat hidden nearby. Hani, grinning mischievously, confesses that she had stashed it away earlier. Bora praises her cleverness, saying her nose is nothing short of miraculous. It always manages to sniff out the right thing. Meanwhile, Ian speaks with another man who asks whether he believes the girl can truly survive this ordeal. Ian replies with quiet seriousness, admitting that he does not know, but she seemed genuinely honest when it came to matters of food. Meanwhile, Bora decides to craft a French-style steak. The other women are astonished as they have never even heard the word before. Bora prepares to use her 21st century cooking techniques. The meat is incredibly tough, so to tenderize it, she employs an old French technique, sous vide, where food is cooked slowly at a controlled low temperature. Without modern equipment, she improvises, mixing hot and cold water to maintain the right heat, and lets the meat cook gently until it turns tender and juicy. At this point, the other women are probably thinking she's not a chef, but a magician with a saucepan. Meanwhile, Minister Sohan and his son Hyun arrive at Governor Hagyongdal's residence. The governor trembles in fear before them. Hyun was an extremely ill-mannered man, and he told the governor that if the food did not turn out well, he would abduct his granddaughter since she had once rebelled against the king. At that very moment, the food is served. When the steak is placed before them, the minister sneers and mocks it, dismissing it as nothing more than a simple piece of meat. But the moment they take the first bite, their senses are jolted. The meat is so tender and delectable that they cannot believe it. Bora had combined an assortment of elements to create a flavor no one had ever experienced before. Yet, Hyun, brimming with arrogance, declares in a pompous voice that the dish lacks the essence of nature. Of course, he was lying deliberately so that Bora would be punished. The instant the minister utters this falsehood, the governor's patience finally collapses. He thunders that it is the most exquisite dish of his life and accuses the minister of lying simply to steal away his granddaughter. His outburst inflames the minister and his son Hyun, who both turn livid. Hyun draws his sword, poised to strike down the governor. Bora realizes with horror that because of her, the governor's life is now dangling by a thread. She is dragged away, and preparations for her punishment begin. Just when Bora is about to face execution, there comes a thunderous arrival. King Juan himself storms in. He halts everything and announces with regal authority that if this dish is as extraordinary as claimed, then he shall taste it himself. Bora stands frozen in shock. The so-called mad actor she had met in the forest is indeed King of Joseon era. A new chance to survive unfolds before her eyes. Juan takes a piece of steak, and the moment the taste strikes his tongue, his eyes widen in delight. The flavor pleases him so deeply that he devours the entire plate in a single sitting, as though he hadn't seen food in a week. He too declares it to be the most sublime dish in existence. After the meal, Juan summons Bora in private. He demands to know who she is and how she learned to cook. Bora reveals that she is a chef. Juan proceeds to question her about her age, her family, and her marital status. When Bora admits she is unmarried, Juan is genuinely astonished, as though her being single was more shocking than her miraculous cooking. He presses further, asking her origins. Gathering her courage, Bora confesses that she comes from the future, 500 years ahead. Juan is stunned, though he refrains from dismissing her as mad. Instead, he remarks that her extraordinary talent has spared her life today. He does not condemn her to death, but neither does he grant her freedom. Juan decrees that Bora will be taken to the palace. All other women captured in Chang are released except for the governor's granddaughter, Michelin, who is also ordered to the palace. Bora has no idea what fate awaits her. She is placed in a palanquin and escorted toward the palace. Her mind grows restless, tormented by thoughts of the magical ancient book, her only chance of returning to her time. That night, Bora and Hani stealthily slip away to the cliff where her handbag had fallen. Just as she desperately searches for the book, Juan appears once again. Bora pleads with him, begging to let her recover the bag, because it is her very life. Juan lays down a condition. He will grant her request provided she obeys his every command. With no choice, Bora reluctantly agrees. Juan orders his soldiers to recover the bag, and they succeed, but before handing it to her, he mischievously hurls it back down the cliff. Bora is enraged, but helpless. Juan mocks her frustration and drags her back into captivity. Her last shred of hope crumbles. Bora and Hani are brought into the palace, where they encounter Queen Kang Suzy, one of the most formidable and dangerous women in Joseon. The queen is startled, for it is the first time Juan has ever brought a woman directly into the palace. She instantly views Bora both as her rival. The queen attempts to belittle her, but Juan intervenes and forbids it. This only fuels the queen's fury, and she begins to suspect Juan harbors interest in this mysterious girl. After this, King Juan strolls through the marketplace with his consort Suzy. When she asks where he is taking her, Juan replies in a teasing tone that he has prepared a special residence for the new girl, Bora. At this, Bora's anxiety is written all over her face. When she admits she is frightened of this unfamiliar place, Juan chuckles, ties a cloth around her eyes, and quips that since she cannot see anything unfamiliar anymore, her fear should now conveniently vanish. The scene shifts to Juan's chamber, where the royal physician examines the wound he had suffered in the forest. The physician explains that some unknown ointment had stopped the bleeding otherwise. Juan's life would have been gravely endangered. Immediately, Juan remembers Bora, who had saved him that day. He dismisses everyone except his chief eunuch. Alone with consort Suzy and the eunuch, the consort repeatedly probes about the mysterious Jinyo, the ghost-like woman Bora trying to pry into Juan's mind. Juan avoids her questions and teases her further, remembering that Bora's special residence is even grander than Balgang, the palace usually reserved for queens. The narrative then cuts to this so-called special residence, which turns out to be nothing more than a tiny prison cell tucked in the corner of the palace. Bora and Hani are locked inside. With biting sarcasm, Bora mutters that what a splendid residence it truly is. Hani, however, strives to remain optimistic, noting that at least they are alive and have been given clean clothes. Meanwhile, inside consort Suzy's palace, she conspires with her father, So-hong. Together, they try to discover who Bora is and what connection she holds with Juan. They resolve to spy on her and send a message to Grand Prince Jason. The scene then shifts to the royal kitchen, Suragan, where chaos reigns. Senior chefs and others were gossiping about the mysterious girl Juan had brought into the palace. Their rivalry to become the next chief royal cook is palpable, particularly between Em and Mayang, whose competitiveness makes even the soup boil with tension. Soon, two separate orders arrive. Head senior court lady Kim brings one from the Grand Royal Queen Dowager, while eunuch Yunan delivers another from consort Suzy. The kitchen has now become a stage where the two most powerful women of the palace wield their authority through food. Next, the narrative moves to the palace of the Grand Royal Queen Dowager. Outraged by Juan's decision to elevate an unknown woman and punish the governor, she refuses to treat the matter lightly and begins plotting her next move. Meanwhile, consort Suzy meets Chief Royal Secretary Hyun, pressing him for details about Bora. He sidesteps her questions. She then orders him to seize all the property and slaves of Governor Hong's family, an act that reveals her ruthless streak. During the meeting, Hyun bitterly complains to his father, questioning how long they must remain enslaved to consort Suzy's whims. His father silences him, but Hyun then suggests a dangerous idea. Perhaps they should abandon consort Suzy and instead support the newcomer Bora. His father immediately dismisses the notion as utter nonsense. In the next scene, Bora and Hani are inside the lakeside chamber of Hani's palace. Both sit in despair when suddenly a masked man appears and unlocks their cell door with a key. They stare in shock, wondering who this mysterious figure is and what on earth is happening. Without saying a word, the masked man signals them to quietly follow him. Bora and Hani assume he is helping them escape, so they trail behind him through the deserted passages of the palace. But to their surprise, they suddenly find themselves in a brightly lit and bustling place where masked revelers are singing, dancing, and celebrating. Bora frantically searches for the masked man, only for the real King Juan to appear before her, mockingly asking how she enjoyed her moonlit stroll. It is then revealed that the entire scene was orchestrated by Juan himself, and the masked man was none other than Gong Gil, a renowned court jester carrying out Juan's prank. Bora realizes she has been the victim of an elaborate joke, while Hani, on the other hand, is instantly smitten with Gong Gil at first sight. Hearing Gong Gil's name reminds Bora of the famous Korean film King and the Clown, which convinces her further that she has indeed stumbled into history. Juan, pleased, rewards the performers generously and celebrations continue. Afterwards, in private, he gives Gong Gil a secret order to investigate who was behind the deadly ambush in the forest. Juan then confronts Bora, warning her that if she dares attempt another escape, she will face dire consequences. Bora, refusing to stay silent, taunts him in return. This only fuels Juan's temper, and in his fury, he orders his executioners to bring red-hot iron rods to brand them both. Witnessing this terrifying side of Juan, their hearts leap into their throats. Bora instantly abandons her pride, admits her mistake, and begs for mercy, promising never to try escaping again. Amused by her trembling pleas, Juan halts the punishment but abruptly declares that he is hungry, instructing Bora to prepare a meal for him. Seizing the opportunity, Bora cunningly demands that Hani be made her assistant, and surprisingly, Juan agrees. However, he lays down a dangerous condition. If she cooks something ordinary just to save her life, she will die. But if she dares risk everything and create something new, she might live, though, only if her dish pleases him. Back in the prison cell, Bora and Hani summon their courage. Bora vows she will do whatever it takes to survive and return home. Inspired by her determination, Hani declares that she too will prove herself as the most senior court lady of the royal kitchen. They encourage one another and prepare for the challenge. The scene shifts to the royal kitchen, where the chief eunuch informs Changsun that Juan has commanded a woman to prepare royal cuisine. Outraged, Changsun and the other chefs see this as an insult to tradition. They glare at Bora with contempt and bombard her with questions about her background and training, interrogating her as though she were a criminal. Bora, slyly evasive, retorts that she has come from so far away that they wouldn't even recognize the place she speaks of. The tension is palpable, and it is clear no one in the kitchen is pleased with her presence. Still, Bora is granted permission to work. As she and Hani examine the kitchen, Bora is surprised to see ingredients that, in her own future, are wildly popular, but here remain unknown. Using her exceptional sense of smell, Hani soon discovers venison hidden away from the very deer hunted by Juan. Bora's mind sparks with inspiration, and she boldly announces that she will prepare a venison steak, her signature dish. She instructs Hani on the preparations, explaining that this very dish once won her a cooking competition in France. Confident, she believes it will impress Juan. The scene highlights her ability to use talent and creativity, even in dire circumstances. Meanwhile, back in the palace of consort Suzy, she learns that Juan has sent Bora into the royal kitchen to cook using his prized venison. Enraged and consumed with jealousy, consort Suzy orders her most trusted court lady, Chu Wol, to spy on Bora and report every single mistake so she can have her expelled. Soon, it is time for the royal meal. The grand table is laid, and the palace is filled with anticipation. Juan waits eagerly in his chamber for Bora's dish. At last, Bora presents her creation before him. She describes it as haute cuisine, a hallmark of traditional French royal dining. Juan and his servants are baffled by strange names like hors d'oeuvre and steak tartare. One eunuch even mutters that it sounds more like a spell than a dish. Bora first serves the raw meat and vegetable mix of steak tartare, preparing it right before Juan in what she proudly calls tableside service. Juan hesitates at the thought of eating raw meat, but after tasting it, is stunned by its unique and exquisite flavor. She then offers pottage, a pea soup whose aroma and taste delight him further. Finally, for the main course, Bora lightly grills Juan's venison tongue over charcoal in his presence, explaining its rarity and symbolic connection to royal power. Juan is captivated by her knowledge and culinary skill, convinced that Bora is no ordinary woman. Impressed, he directly asks where she learned all this. This time, Bora chooses honesty and claims she has come from the future. Laughing, Juan dismisses her as insane, but admits he is pleased by her talent nonetheless. Curious, Juan asks how she knew he would enjoy this dish. Bora explains that she once read about his historical name. Shocked that she knows such details, Juan takes a bite and is suddenly overwhelmed by memories of his mother, who used to feed him with the same tenderness. The moment turns deeply emotional. Just then, consort Susie arrives at the chamber, demanding to see Juan. His servant blocks her, explaining that Juan has forbidden interruptions. Furious, she tries to force her way in, but Juan himself orders her away from behind the door for the first time, since he had never denied her before. After consort Susie leaves, Juan grows unusually close to Bora and whispers that he has chosen her. Bora is shaken, fearing he intends to make her his concubine, which could alter history itself. Terrified, she begins to wonder what fate awaits her. Soon after, Chief Royal Secretary Hune approaches Bora privately with an offer. If she spies on Juan and reports everything to him, he will protect her from consort Susie's wrath. Realizing everyone in the palace merely wants to use her for their own gain, Bora does not outright refuse, but instead sets a clever condition. She tells him that if he can recover her handbag, which she fondly calls her pouch lost in the forest, she will consider his offer. Amused yet puzzled by such a strange demand, Hyun reluctantly agrees. Meanwhile, consort Susie secretly conspires with the chief eunuch to launch a fresh plot against Bora. She resolved that the royal chefs would torment Bora so relentlessly that she would eventually abandon the palace of her own accord. For this scheme, she ordered Cook Min to take charge, well aware of his deep-rooted hatred for Bora. The very next day, the royal kitchen became a battlefield of mischief. The chefs deliberately burned damp firewood, filling every corner with suffocating smoke. They slipped snakes and cockroaches into her food and even dulled the sharp edge of her knife. Bora, though greatly troubled, refused to surrender her spirit. By evening, after enduring endless harassment, Bora and Hani were once again locked in their cell. With a wry smile, Bora remarked that the prison seemed far more peaceful than the royal kitchen. In sorrow, she reflected that if she revealed the chef's actions to Juan, he would certainly have them executed, something she could not allow. The scene then shifted to the royal court that you guys saw in the start of this drama. Ministers, furious over Governor Hong's exile and the sparing of punishment for Bora, resigned in protest. They pressed Juan to sentence her to death. Witnessing this rebellion, Juan's temper blazed. Determined to quell the unrest, Juan took a dramatic step. He summoned Bora before the full court. As she entered, the ministers roared for her execution. Juan listened in silence, and then, to everyone's astonishment, declared that the previous night this woman had served him a dish so peculiar that it bewildered his senses. For that very reason, he appointed her as the chief royal cook. The proclamation froze the court in stunned silence. News of this decision swiftly reached the Grand Royal Queen Dowager, who was infuriated. To her, it seemed Juan was crossing every boundary for the sake of an unknown woman and reducing the monarchy to a farce. She resolved that silence was no longer an option. Meanwhile, consort Susie and her father were equally dumbfounded. They realized that underestimating Bora had been their gravest mistake. Consort Susie decided to devise a more dangerous and direct plan to remove Bora, convinced that Juan was now completely enthralled by her. Back in the royal kitchen, head senior court Lady Kim appeared, summoning Bora on behalf of the Grand Royal Queen Dowager. Bora was astonished. Why would the most powerful woman in the palace want to meet her? An ominous premonition struck her. Before the Queen Dowager, Bora listened as the formidable woman declared bluntly that she doubted her talent. Still, she granted Bora a chance to prove herself, a cooking contest against the senior-most royal chefs. The condition was merciless. Should Bora lose, one of her hands would be cut off as punishment. Soon, Bora discovered that the mind behind this deadly scheme was none other than consort Susie, who had incited the queen and succeeded in arranging the contest. Bora now understood that this was not merely a competition but a carefully orchestrated plot to destroy her, one she would have to face alone. At the same time, Juan received a secret message. He learned that a draft of the historical records concerning his mother's death had been planned by someone else. He planned to seize it that very night, revealing that despite his entanglement with Bora, his true mission had never left his mind. When he later discovered that his grandmother had wagered Bora's hand, his fury knew no bounds. He realized that this matter had escalated far beyond a cooking contest. It was now a direct assault on his royal authority. At last, the day of the competition arrived. The royal kitchen was thick with tension as Bora and the senior chefs prepared their dishes. To everyone's shock, Juan himself entered during the competition. Addressing his grandmother, he declared that if the contest was to proceed, the rules must be equal for all. He introduced a new decree. Only the victor would escape punishment, while each of the losers would lose a hand. The chefs nearly fainted in horror. Juan had transformed the contest into a grim game of life and death, leaving no room for retreat. The executioner appeared with a straw-cutting machine, repurposed as the tool for severing hands. The atmosphere turned unbearably oppressive. Bora, realizing there was no way back, remembered her father and vowed to win at any cost so she could return home. Juan looked at her, silently thinking that if she truly hailed from the future, she should prove it by creating something only she could. For Bora, this unspoken thought was both a challenge and an encouragement. The Queen Dowager then announced the theme of the contest: filial piety, a child's duty and love toward their parents. She added that the main ingredients were tofu and doenjang, soybean paste. Bora was startled. Understanding the traditional emotions of Joseon was already difficult, and now she had to transform them into food. As she pondered, she recalled how her father often cooked doenjang pasta for her. To her, that dish was the truest and most heartfelt expression of filial piety. She resolved to prepare it, seeing it as a symbol of her father's love. During the contest, tension crackled not only in the kitchen but also between Juan and his grandmother. The queen taunted him, suggesting he had grown far too close to that traitor Bora. Juan retorted that crowning a winner before the dishes were even served was premature. Their sharp exchange revealed that this contest was no mere culinary duel but a proxy war for power in the palace. Quietly, Juan reflected that he had not spared Bora, but her talent had spared herself. Glancing at consort Susie, he resolved to prove whose will truly ruled the palace. To sabotage Bora, the senior chefs played a dirty trick. They hoarded all the finest tofu and doenjang, leaving her with only broken tofu and a pitifully small amount of paste. They were determined to weaken her chances. Bora, distressed at the lack of ingredients, suddenly noticed spinach. Remembering its health benefits, she thought it would be perfect for the queen's ailing health. She quickly altered her plan and decided to include spinach. When she struggled with the shortage of doenjang, eunuch Yunan, ironically one of consort Susie's men, unexpectedly offered his help. He revealed that a 3-year-old jar of doenjang was stored in the back courtyard and led her to it. This hinted that perhaps he too was impressed by her talent, or perhaps he had hidden motives of his own. Meanwhile, the courtiers watched the contest closely. Suddenly, Chief Royal Secretary Hyun clutched his stomach and staged a comical scene, insisting he urgently needed the outhouse. His childish performance left the courtiers baffled. Some even muttered that palace politics had truly gone down the drain. Yet it was clearly just a farce. Within the competition, senior chef Kookyung and cook Iyam busied themselves with their signature dishes: Yoa Mandu, crisp fish fritters, and Yon Poteng, a rich octopus and tofu soup. Both of them brim with overconfidence about their victory and mock Bora openly. They even start taunting one another, making it evident that their rivalry is just as strong as their arrogance. Meanwhile, Bora quietly immerses herself in her preparation. She kneads the dough by mixing it with spinach paste, creating a strikingly green dough. The entire court stares in astonishment, while the queens and officials whisper among themselves, wondering what sort of bizarre dish this could possibly turn out to be. They dismiss Bora's act as sheer foolishness, claiming she had made a grave mistake by using fresh spinach instead of dried vegetables. Juan, however, steps in to defend her, declaring that he is eager to witness something new, since he has already tasted the flavors of the other chef's dishes. The Grand Royal Queen Dowager sneers that Juan seems to have high hopes from that commoner girl. Juan calmly retorts that the tongue never lies and taste alone will reveal the truth. This exchange makes it clear that the competition has evolved beyond mere cooking. It has become a trial of Bora's talent and Juan's judgment. Head Senior Court Lady Kim then recounts a story about the Grand Royal Queen Dowager's past. She explains that as a child, the queen rarely felt hungry. The last meal her mother served her before entering the palace had been doenjang soup, fresh and savory, and its flavor remained etched in her memory. No palace chef had ever managed to recreate that exact taste. Hearing this, Bora realizes that preparing something merely delicious will not suffice. She must revive the very freshness and soulful taste that carried the queen's emotions. At this moment, she fears her doenjang pasta might not be enough for such an emotional challenge. She falls into a dilemma, when suddenly Senior Cook Yong and Cook Im descend into a childish quarrel over the leftover ingredients. Yong asks for a few green onions, but Im flatly refuse. Their petty bickering reveals their small-mindedness and desperation to win at any cost. Suddenly, Bora rises and announces that she requires another ingredient. She attempts to leave in the middle of the competition, but the palace guards stop her. This move is highly risky, since the rules clearly forbid it. Her bold step sparks a heated debate in the royal court. Consort Susie vehemently objects, declaring it a breach of regulations. But Juan once again supports Bora and adds an even harsher condition. He says Bora may fetch another ingredient, but if she still loses, both of her hands shall be cut off instead of one. Bora accepts the condition without hesitation. She knows that her life and her very hands are now at stake. Trusting her friend Hani, she sends her to fetch the secret ingredient. This moment highlights Bora's courage and her willingness to take extreme risks. On her way back, Hani is ambushed by Court Lady Chuul, who had been secretly dispatched by Consort Susie to delay her. Hani is injured but refuses to give up. Her determination makes it clear that Bora's enemies are willing to stoop to any level to sabotage her. Meanwhile, Bora decides to enhance her dish by burning the doenjang directly over fire to create a smoky flavor. The onlookers are stunned by this unconventional technique. It proves that Bora has an inventive solution for every obstacle, though honestly, the kitchen was starting to look more like a science lab than a royal cook-off. As the final moments tick away, Bora anxiously awaits Hani's return. Just in time, Hani, bloodied and exhausted, arrives and hands her the mysterious ingredient clams. Bora instantly adds them to her soup. The court gasps in disbelief, unable to comprehend why she would mix clams into doenjang soup. Many consider it another ridiculous stunt. Even the royal physician worries aloud that such odd combinations could harm one's health, but Juan defends Bora once more, saying that it is wrong to judge before tasting. He reminds his grandmother that only after sampling the dish should any decision be made. His unwavering faith in Bora infuriates the Grand Royal Queen Dowager further. Time runs out, and all the chefs present their dishes. The atmosphere is tense, for only taste will now determine whose hands remain intact and who becomes the next chief royal cook. First, Cook Mayang presents his traditional royal dish, mandu, a minced meat wrapped in thin slices of fish. The royals taste it and shower it with praise for its tenderness and flavor, though the queen points out that the doenjang essence is nearly absent. Next, Cook Im showcases his celebrated dish, prepared with precious mushrooms and chicken broth. The dish is declared highly nutritious and tasty, and the judges commend it as well. Both senior chefs manage to impress. Then comes Bora's turn. She presents what looks like a simple bowl of doenjang soup, leaving everyone slightly disappointed. Consort Susie mocks her, asking if that is all she could produce. Bora confidently replies that this is no ordinary soup but a special one. The Grand Royal Queen Dowager takes a sip, and tears fill her eyes. The soup carries the exact fresh, soulful taste of her childhood, the flavor of her mother's cooking. She is transported back to her early days. Juan, astonished, watches her reaction. Bora then explains that the secret of this freshness lies in the clams, which come from the Semjin River where the queen spent her childhood. She also reveals that she added spinach because it helps with bone strength and blood deficiency, both crucial for the queen's health. She had embraced the principle that food itself is medicine. The depth of Bora's thought and the exquisite taste overwhelm the Grand Royal Queen Dowager, and she declares Bora the winner of the competition. Juan, too, praises her, while the queen announces before all that Bora is henceforth the chief royal cook of the palace. With Bora's victory, this crucial chapter of the contest comes to a close, but Juan then declares it is time to punish the losers. He orders the executioners to bring the dreadful hand-cutting device. Cook Im and Cook Young tremble in fear as they are forced to kneel before it. The atmosphere turns terrifying. Just as the executioner steps forward, Bora rushes and stands before them, stopping the punishment. She boldly tells Juan that cutting off the hands of such experienced chefs will turn the entire competition into a farce. With astonishing courage, she challenges Juan's judgment directly. She reminds him that the true theme of the contest was filial piety. And at that point, even Juan looked as if someone had sprinkled salt on his royal pride. She argued that punishing the chefs who had served the queen faithfully for years and cared for her health would be nothing short of unfilial, an act devoid of duty. She reasoned that cutting off a cook's hand was equivalent to killing him, for a chef without hands was as useful as a sword without a blade, and losing a simple cooking contest could never justify a death sentence. Moved by Bora's words, the Grand Royal Queen Dowager also pleaded with Juan to forgive the chefs. Accepting her own mistake, she confessed that it was she who had started this competition in the first place. She admitted to Juan that she had despised his late father because of his obsession with hunting, and when Bora had cooked venison, it had stirred her anger. After hearing the arguments of both the queen and Bora, Juan relented and altered his punishment. He spared the lives of cooks but gave them a new sentence. They would now work under Bora and learn cooking from her. For them, this was the ultimate humiliation, though it was still better than losing their heads. Once the contest ended and Juan departed, the queen and her court ladies began discussing the death of Juan's mother, the late Queen Yun. From their words, it became clear that Queen Yun had not died of an illness but had been poisoned after being expelled from the palace, and that the Grand Royal Queen Dowager, along with the courtiers, had conspired in it. They feared that if Juan ever discovered this truth, it would ignite chaos. Meanwhile, in his chambers, Juan learned that Consort Suzy had been the one spreading false rumors against Governor Hong. He also discovered that after the competition, Consort Suzy had gone straight to her quarters at Jiahongwan. Furious, Juan ordered his chief eunuch to take him there immediately. In the royal kitchen, the atmosphere had completely shifted. Cooks Ingium and Cook Mayang expressed their gratitude to Bora, brought her water, and praised her skills. Bora felt pleased, realizing that she had earned her rightful place, no longer just an outsider, but the respected head of the royal kitchen. She asked Hani about the injury on her head, and Hani revealed that while she was carrying a clamp, someone had attacked her. Just then, Gong Gil arrived and saved her. Hearing this, Bora began to suspect that Consort Suzy had orchestrated the attack, and her mind wandered to what Gong Gil is up to, because she knew the future that no one does. By this time, Juan, seething with rage, was already on his way to confront Consort Suzy. Consort Suzy, with her court ladies, was busy weaving a new trap against Bora. She believed Bora to be a spy and considered it necessary to eliminate her. Juan stormed in, and Consort Suzy pretended innocence, asking coyly whether he had come out of concern for her. But Juan went straight to the point, accusing her of spreading false rumors against Governor Hong. Consort Suzy was stunned, wondering how Juan had found out. Seeing his fury, she realized the situation was grave. To save herself, she cleverly brought up the death of Juan's mother, reminding him of his vow of vengeance and insisting that at such a critical moment, he should not get entangled with some unknown girl. The very mention of his mother's name inflamed both his grief and his rage. Consort Suzy provoked him further, speaking about the tragic death of his mother. Overwhelmed, Juan broke down emotionally, shouting furiously and forbidding her from speaking about his mother again. This scene exposed the deep, unhealed wounds buried within him. Suddenly, he suffered a seizure, his body trembling as strange voices echoed in his mind, the very condition the cooks had whispered about earlier. Consort Suzy tried to hold him, but Juan shoved her away and demanded to be left alone. The next day, Grand Prince Jason, Juan's half-brother, perceived him as a political liability. He feared that a mysterious woman like Bora was distracting Juan from his true purpose of avenging their mother's death. Jason and his allies plotted to use the upcoming banquet after Juan's physical examination as an opportunity to test Bora. This revealed Jason's darker intentions. He met his secret organization, who were already conspiring against Juan. They discussed the assassination attempt in the forest, and it was revealed that the attacker had been one of their own men acting without orders. Jason, calm and strategic, commanded them to find the assassin before Juan could, lest their plot be exposed. Chief Royal Secretary Hyun then visited Bora at her new quarters. He presented her with precious jewels and advised her to try winning Juan's heart. He wanted Bora to control Juan just as his sister consort Suzy did. Bora and Hani, however, failed to grasp his flirtatious remarks, thinking it all a bizarre misunderstanding. Bora's casual indifference only enraged Hyun further, prompting him to reveal a shocking truth, and he mocked her, asking if she was truly so foolish that she did not realize the lengths His Majesty was going to in order to protect her. Hearing this, Bora for the first time understood that her life was indeed in grave danger. Soon after, Bora, now the chief royal cook, was in the kitchen preparing her first royal meal. Suddenly, eunuch Yoon came running with alarming news. Juan had engaged in a furious quarrel with consort Suzy at her place, after which he had suffered a terrible seizure. He warned that Juan was unstable and dangerously unpredictable, so much so that the one serving food tonight might not live to see tomorrow. Panic erupted in the kitchen. The royal chefs trembled as the rumor spread that Juan had suffered a fit and was consumed with wrath, hardly the best time to be serving him dinner. One cook whispered that tonight's menu should include poison as a side dish, since Juan looked eager enough to taste death itself. They remembered how terrifying Juan became whenever one of his seizures struck. He would hurl objects across the room, bellow at the top of his lungs, and insist he was hearing eerie voices. From their accounts, it was also clear that in such moments, only consort Suzy had the peculiar talent of calming him down, almost like a personal human sedative. Meanwhile, Bora lost in thought about Juan. For the first time, she began to see his tyrannical outbursts and strange fits not merely as cruelty, but as the outward scars of a hidden pain, one likely rooted in the tragic death of his mother. To her, he no longer appeared solely a tyrant, but also a wounded man. With this realization, she resolved that tonight she would not prepare a pompous royal dish to impress him, but instead something truly comforting, soul food that might soothe a storm-tossed heart. Back in the royal kitchen, Bora took command with surprising authority. She directed her team, which now included all cooks, laying out exactly what had to be done. For the first time, she was not battling alone in the kitchen, but guiding the entire staff as one cohesive unit. Everyone obeyed her, moving with a rare harmony that almost made the place look less like a battlefield and more like an actual kitchen. Meanwhile, Juan sat alone in his chamber, seething. In fury, he had chased away every servant and court lady, leaving the atmosphere tense enough to slice with a knife. Just then, Bora entered with food. Juan was startled. After all, he had ordered everyone to stay away. He demanded to know what new dish she had dared to bring this time. With quiet confidence, Bora announced its name, doenjang pasta. Juan's face darkened instantly, for earlier that very day he had already been tormented with a doenjang-based dish during the cooking contest. He erupted, accusing Bora of mocking him. But she, instead of trembling, calmly explained that pasta was something entirely different, and what she had prepared was unlike anything he imagined. Juan even fumbled hilariously over the word pasta, mangling the syllables in a way that would have made even the noodles wince. Still consumed by anger, he refused to eat. Bora noticed that in his drunken state, he couldn't even manage to hold his chopsticks straight. Taking a bold step, she twirled the noodles around like one would with a fork and held them right up to his mouth. It was a scandalous breach of royal etiquette, yet deeply intimate in its simplicity. Juan, utterly disarmed by her daring, ate the pasta. At the very first bite, his fury began to melt away. He sank into the unusual yet comforting flavors, the salty depth of doenjang, the gentle sweetness of the cream, and the soft bite of the noodles blending into perfect harmony. Bora explained softly that her father used to prepare this dish whenever she felt sad. Touched, Juan asked about her mother, and Bora revealed that she had lost her in childhood. For the first time, the two conversed not as tyrant and subject, but as two lonely souls bound by the same wound, the absence of a mother's love. Juan, half mocking yet half intrigued by her tale of being from the future, offered to help her find her father. Bora repeated that the only path back for her lay through her handbag, which held a book named Mangun Rock. Juan then set his condition. If she could tell him about his future and prove her words true, he would believe her and help her recover her precious bundle. Bora began carefully, warning him to be cautious during the year of the blue monkey, as those dearest to him would conspire against him. She hinted at something called the Gaptian literary purge, though she avoided revealing everything outright. Juan dismissed her words with a laugh, but a flicker of unease crossed his face nonetheless. After she departed, he pondered the title, Mangun Rock. The phrase actually means yearning for clouds, which struck him as peculiar, and he wondered what hidden meaning it contained. Bora too realized the title was no mere decoration, it held the central mystery of her fate. The next scene shifted to a secret meeting, where Juan was meant to receive records concerning his mother's death. Instead, he stumbled upon the lifeless body of Principal Yoon, the very man who had promised him those records. Realization hit instantly. It was a trap. A masked assassin attacked without warning, and a fierce battle erupted. The assassin was lethal, yet Juan was no stranger to combat. With a sharp strike, he slashed the attacker's arm deeply. Though the killer fled, Juan was left with a crucial clue. His enemy now bore a scarred wound upon his hand. Juan knew then that he was utterly alone and couldn't trust anyone in the palace. He began to suspect that everyone linked to his mother's death was part of this dark conspiracy. Anguish and fury entwined within him, but he swore he would not yield. He vowed to unmask the assassin and avenge his mother. Juan, back in his chamber, drowned himself in wine until he was so intoxicated that even the chief eunuch could not restrain him. So, he woke Bora up to make something for the king. Bora then entered with a meal prepared alongside Jawan Sang. The sight of Juan, broken, drenched in drink, and barely coherent, shocked her. Through his haze, he lifted his gaze and murmured simply that she was there. And then came the most unexpected twist. Juan leaned toward her and rested his head upon her shoulder. For a fleeting moment, he seemed not a monarch, but a fragile, wounded boy. Whispering softly, he pleaded for her to let him remain like that, just for a little while. Bora froze at the sudden intimacy, uncomfortable yet unable to pull away. Then, in a moment charged with both vulnerability and audacity, Juan kissed her.